You want to call Helen, right?
All right.
Ecclesiastes.
Let's begin with your comments. Okay, good comments as usual. Very good. I'm going to start with Rivera. Rivera, you should study theology or something because you made some excellent comments. Really, you should consider it. Have you considered it? Yes? Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
This counts as studying theology.
Yeah, no, he has a good mind for the text. Sorry to put you on the spot. I know you hate it. Okay. Okay, so first of all, he made an interesting observation that so remember I told you that Genesis, Ecclesiastes 1, we're going to study it today together, is the anti-creation narrative, right? We're going to look at that. But he mentions that also Ecclesiastes chapter 3 can be seen as reversing creation. This is chapter 3, 18 to 21. So we can go there briefly just to see that. We won't study it, but this is an interesting observation where he says here about the difference between animals and man, which in Genesis 1 is very clearly differentiated, right? Animals are created out of the word of God. Human beings are, picked up, lovingly shaped, breathed into. So it's a very different treatment. And only the human being has the breath of God, right? The animals are not given the breath of God, no matter how much the Hindus want to believe that. In the creation story, we do not share the same breath, right? So it's a very different view. Although it does, the Hindu version does lead to better treatment of animals, but nevertheless, here we have a clear differentiation, right? And especially with regards, he makes the point on the notion of the breath, which is exactly what we do not have in common. And he says this here: I decided as regards men to dissociate them from divine beings and to face the fact that they are beasts. Right? So already now he's blurring the distinction, which is a no-no, right? You don't want to start blurring distinction. By the way, this was one of the reasons for the flood. If you read the Talmudic text, the commentary on the, the flood, right? That God got tired of humanity, so we should wipe them out, the surface of the earth. One of the reasons was that the distinction between species was blurred and the distinction between human beings and animals was blurred. In other words, they were all, how do I say this without shocking your young sensibilities? Yes? Yes, right. So you had a lot of bestiality going on. You had animals being crossbred. And this is one of the reasons that are quoted by the rabbis, this blurring of the distinctions, which in fact brought in the chaos, right? So one of the contributions of Genesis 1, what God is doing when you see his first actions are what? Actions of what? When he's doing with the heavens and the earth, the water and the earth, what is he doing? Separating, right? So the notion of separating, right, between heaven and earth, between earth and water, between different species, between humans and beasts, these separations are part of what keeps the earth in order, what keeps the cosmic order. When you start to blur the distinctions, you allow chaos to start to seep back in, right? And here we have exactly something like that taking place in chapter 3, when he's blurring the distinction between humans and animals. And he continues. It's a very dangerous thing he's doing there, which I'm not surprised. So he continues, in respect of the fate of man and the fate of the beast, they have one and same fate, right? Both have the same life breath, completely overturning, right, the whole creation story with us having the special breath of God, having the spiritual dimension. Now we have nothing. We are just beasts, right? So that's very interesting, right? And then, of course, both return to dust. And who knows if a man's life breath does rise upward or if a beast's breath does sink down into the earth. And maybe the beast goes up and the human goes down. Who says one goes up? Why are we the ones going up? If we were to look at, some people have seen our presence on this earth like a cancer. I'm sure you'll agree with me, based on what you're talking about. And that in a way, I think there's a movie about this, that aliens come on earth and they decide to destroy humanity because humanity is destroying the world. No? What movie is that? Which one?
There's like 50.
Okay, okay. So 1 out of 50 movies exactly where we are seen as the problem. So eliminated by the aliens who want to preserve the earth and its beauty. Anyway, so a good observation, right? You're very much in tune here with the biblical text. something interesting, something else you said. So Kohelet, of course, is from the root kahal, which I'm gonna write on the board. You have to know what that means so you can understand. So kahal means assembly. Kohelet is the one speaking in front of the assembly. According to Rivera, is like, oh, is he performing his work? Is he doing, spoken word poetry? Right? Could be, why not? I can see that. So interesting observation, right? That he might be performing like an artist actually in front of, in the court, this work, which has a certain rhythm actually. It is a poetic work, so that works. Okay, Davidov, interesting comment on wisdom as being a source of vexation. Remember the text in Ecclesiastes 1 verse 18? As wisdom grows, vexation grows. There's a contrast here with the views of Proverbs, right? Go with me to Proverbs 3:17. If I can find it, I'm getting used to this Bible. Everything's mixed up, but I'm getting it. So 3:17, where does it start? That's 4, okay. And look at 3:17 about wisdom, right? She is a tree of life to those who grasp her, and whoever holds her is what? Look at the text. Fill in the blank.
3:17.
Yeah, 3:18. 3:18, sorry, 3:18. Happy, okay, opposite, right? So he's again, right? Moving away from the views that he expounded in Proverbs. I tend to think that the book of Proverbs might be him. Obviously it's him, but who is this father who is teaching the son? Is it Solomon teaching his son? Has anybody thought about this? Who's the father teaching the son in the book of Proverbs? Have you thought about this? Teaching about adultery, teaching about, who would be the best?
Is it Solomon being taught by David?
It could be, right? I just thought of that this morning. Like, surely we know Solomon most likely didn't teach his son. Why? How do I know this? That Solomon didn't spend a minute, huh? Yeah, the son it turns out really, really messed up, right? And we know that David had a connection to Solomon because when David wanted to build the temple, God said no. Anybody know why, by the way? God said no to David. Yeah.
Too much blood.
Too much blood on his hands. And then who did God choose? So you can imagine knowing this prophetically, right? King David is going to focus on the future, right? And we see Solomon emerging from this relationship, incredibly grounded, right? And so sometimes I wonder, especially the teachings on adultery, right? Who better, right, to teach about adultery than King David, right? Who suffered so much through his adulterous relationship, and the son Solomon comes out of this relationship also, right? So interesting, right? I was just I was thinking, maybe he's just here still processing the teachings of his father, right? The beautiful teachings of his father might be what he summarizes in the book of Proverbs, but he's moving away now, right, from that. Now wisdom is a source of pain and not a source of pleasure anymore, right? So thanks for pointing that out. Epstein and Suresh, you highlight the concept of how is it here? Vanity? What's the translation? Futility I have. Let's look at this a little bit. David. Okay, Hevel is a keyword. Learn it now. Hevel is what is translated as futility, meaningless, whatever. It's a bad translation, obviously, because Hevel doesn't really mean that. Anybody know what exactly Hevel means, literally? And where we have the first instance of Hevel. Yes. Exactly. Hevel means not the breath you breathe in, not ruach, right? Which is the powerful breath that we have from God, right? Hevel is just the expiration. We say that expiration? Yeah. So it's not the breathing in, right? Powerful breathing in or inspiration, right? It's not the ruach. It's very different. It's the very weak coming out, expiration, right? So in other words, and it's a breath which once it's out, can you catch it?
It's like fleeting.
It's fleeting, right? So better translation is fleeting. Life is like this breath. Where'd it go? You cannot catch your breath here, right? Never. So that's kind of the idea, right? So he's not saying life is meaningless. He's just saying everything is fleeting. So this is important because we interpret, oh, if it's fleeting, therefore, why? Why would it be? Why does it have to be meaningless if it's fleeting, right? That's the question, which Solomon is struggling with. So who's the first person? Where do we find this word hevel for the first time in the Hebrew Bible? First occurrence of hevel. Hevel sounds like, which person's name sounds like Hevel and is?
I didn't have it.
Yes, Hevel, right? Cain and Abel. Abel is the English rendition. In the Hebrew, it's Hevel, right? So now you have another idea here that illuminates the concept of Hevel is this brother, right? Who disappears with no descendants, right? That's what Solomon is saying. Everything I did for nothing, no descendants. Indeed, right? Everything there's no real descendant. There is, but not worth mentioning, right? So, or at least not immediately. So that's the idea, right? It's the idea of for nothing. There's no continuation. So those are just some idea, right? Keep those in mind as you read this Hevel, because it will orient your reading, and don't be fooled by the translation. We'll come back to this when we do chapter 2 next time and compare it to another word that is repeated often in chapter 2, which I dare you to find it, the word that contrasts with Hevel in chapter 2. Anybody found it yet? You read it, so yeah, that's your homework, right? Find me the contrasting word with Hevel in chapter 2 for next time. Okay, Michal, what did I write?
Mary?
I can't read myself. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you're like, how can he have such a bleak vision, right? Is he exaggerating, right? Or is he simply depressed, therefore seeing everything darkly, right? So we need to be careful. I've heard this, so no offense, you're not doing that, but I've heard variations of this when I study the book. For example, I don't know if this is in a Jewish context, but in a Christian context, a lot of people say, Ecclesiastes is a lesson in how not to be, right? This is a sinful man with sinful thoughts and sinful words, right? So whatever you're reading is an object lesson in how not to think, not to speak, right? This is him speaking sinfully. So we don't take seriously what he's saying. Just at the end, chapter 12, right? What does he say there that redeems everything? You know this.
Well,
Yeah. It's like, that the last part is okay.
rejoice in the days of your youth.
Further, are you kidding? And no Christian is going to say rejoice in the day of the youth.
Rejoice in the wife of your.
No.
Yes.
No, you don't know Christians very well. Further, verse 12.
So trying to guess this book.
We'll prove the one.
Verse 12, chapter 12, verse 12, chapter 12, verse 13.
13.
Yes, go ahead.
Some of the matter is when all said and done, revere God and observe his commandments.
There, that's what matters, right? Seriously, right? So in other words, here he repented, now we can listen to him. Okay, this is such a devastating approach, right? Maybe it's like that in Jewish context too. I don't know how the book is taught, but is there also this notion that we shouldn't take this seriously because he's sinful?
No.
Okay, it's a little different hermeneutics, right? So I'm going to disagree with the Christian, well, typical Christian, is not all, but some, right, are reading it like this. Every word here is important, including the dark times, right? Why? Because it is only when we travel with Solomon through the dark times that we will reach the light that he reaches, right? In other words, we cannot just reach that light if we stay outside. We're like, oh, I'm holy, sin over there. I'm not going to read you, right? Let me skip over to when you repent. No, right? You don't see anything like that. Solomon is inviting us to enter into his darkness because his darkness is a particular path that he took, a journey that he took during which he found a very powerful light, which we will not be able to see unless we travel with him, right? So every word here is important. It's very similar to Job, right? If Job hadn't suffered, where would Job be? He would be home with his cattle and children, right? Absolutely uninteresting character. Still no conversation with God, right? It is because he suffered and went through this dark night that this breach opened, right, between him and God. It's very similar here. I want you to read this just like Job. This is as serious as Job. Just like Job is complaining and ranting, he is complaining and ranting, right? But his darkness is necessary for him to reach a very profound truth, which if you haven't been through this, you can't see, right? I want to really be clear about that. If you haven't been through this darkness that he's going through, you cannot see. You will not be able to see the epiphany that he has, right? Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Yes, very dark, but we should definitely have the courage to travel with him, right, in this darkness, because then we will find what he found. Yeah.
So does that at the very least mean that in the beginning his words are products with sin, but then through the journey it gets better? Because I kind of do agree with what you say, the Christian view of this, and that it does feel unnecessarily bleak and internally.
Well, right. The bleakness is the passage. Just like for Job, the revolt is the passage, right? Job's revolt, we know, is holy, right? It is through the revolt that he touches God, right? It's the same here. It is through the bleakness that he reaches a revelation moment. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, every word, every moment is important. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. The temptation, of course, to be like, let's not take too seriously. I mean, in some moments he even says there is no God. This is how we praise Nietzsche for being the first one, to proclaim the death of God, right? Way before Nietzsche, King Solomon already did it when he says there is no comforter. Comforter is one of the names of God in the Hebrew tradition. When it's the passage, I forget where he says, I looked at the oppressed and I said, there is no comforter. When Nietzsche says God is dead, preceded 3,000 years ago by King Solomon, right? So even that, right, just like Job, right? If you've accepted Job's revolt as a passage to God, have you? Then it's the same. Then it's the same, right? This is for a revolt. This is a kind of revolt where he's just, it's a different tonality, but it's still the framework of darkness, which is needed to get into these deeper layers, right? So does that make sense? But of course, we don't all have to travel. Again, remember, I always tell people, there are two paths in the Hebrew Bible, right? There is the path of light and the path of darkness. You can choose, right? There's the path of the 5 books of Moses, where you can follow that and find the light. And there's the path of, remember, the wisdom literature is written for it is the Bible of the black sheep, right? It is the Bible of the transgressors, because the biblical writers or the rabbis who compiled the canon knew not everyone is going to be a follower. Some people are strayers, right? Some people have to stray. What Bible is for them? These, right? So we don't have to, right, enter. And I think it's true. Some of us don't have to enter this darkness to see the light, but some of us do. I don't know which category you belong to, but definitely, right? So again, if you feel uncomfortable penetrating this darkness, that's okay. But the truth is, it might happen that at a point of your life, you will find yourself thinking like that, perhaps, right? Epstein's already there. Epstein is an old soul. So, right, there might come a moment where you start to think exactly like Solomon. When you do, there is a path out of that here. You see what I mean? That's the beauty of this book. Not all of us fall into despair, but for those of us who will, there is a path to follow here through the despair into the light. That's the beauty of it, right? But not everyone needs to go through that, right? I agree. Okay. Davidovich. Yes, it does look like he just broke up with his girlfriend, doesn't it? Yes, there's a kind of how you wake up. You know how you break up with someone and then you sleep, and in the very first minutes of waking up, you forgot and you're like happy, and then you remember, and then blah, it's like, okay, this is kind of yeah. So maybe I can see that. Okay, good. All right, let's get into the text. So, yes,
It's read in synagogue.
yes.
The connection. Where you are. And how this relates to.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Fearful of things that can go to bad.
No, I like that because it's the fall, right? The Sukkot is a holiday which we'll talk about, which falls on the fall. In the fall, this is the the advanced years, right? It's the fall of your age, right? When you enter.
The end of the Torah.
Exactly, it's the end of a cycle. You're coming to the end of your life, right? And you start, and at that moment you connect to King Solomon, Ecclesiastes, right? Maybe earlier you can read Proverbs and Song of Songs, right? But as you get more and more into the seasons of your life, there are moments where this fits, right? Yeah, very nice. Yes, good point. We'll talk about Sukkot next time also. All right, did you get Genesis 1, everybody? Let's look at the way that King Solomon has lost his Maat. Right. So I need someone looking at Genesis 1. In fact, I need someone to read Genesis 1, and then someone will read Ecclesiastes 1. The beginning until let's see where you stop. So we need someone to read from it. So we're gonna take some time, right? Genesis 1, verses 1 to not all the whole chapter. Yeah, we're gonna do this. And then the whole chapter of Ecclesiastes 1. Okay, so we're gonna take some time. Now, as the persons are reading, I want you to see how Ecclesiastes is twisting everything, right? He's basically, I'm giving you the key. Ecclesiastes is taking Genesis 1 and he's shredding it to pieces, throwing it in the air, and then in the garbage. Okay, that's basically the equivalent of what he's doing. So I want you to see where he messes things up, right? It's like you have a nice puzzle that you finished after months, right? And then somebody comes and like scrambles the pieces, right? That's what King Solomon is doing to Genesis 1. He's scrambling the pieces. So I want you to look to see that. And of course, the point is that well, we'll see, right? So as they're reading, as the two people are gonna read, I want you to jot down the moments where you feel there's a reversal, like exactly like we saw with the animals, right? In Genesis, there's a separation. Here, there is a merging. I want you to see all the moments where King Solomon is messing with Genesis 1, okay? All right, who wants to read Genesis 1? Yes, and who wants to read Ecclesiastes 1? Maybe Epstein, no? You're in the mood. You will do it very well. Okay, all right, go ahead.
When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and
Sorry.
void.
Sorry. Everybody take note, right? Start taking notes and listening carefully at what you think might be, well, right now but jot down should we start with Ecclesiastes 1 or Genesis 1? No, we should start with Genesis. Yeah. Take note of the different stages so that you can see how Ecclesiastes mess. Okay, sorry, continue. All right.
When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from God sweeping over the water. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and called the darkness night, and there was evening and there was morning, the first day. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, that it may separate water from water." God made the expanse and separated the water which was below the expanse from the water which was above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. God said, "Let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry land may appear," and it was so. God called the dry land earth, and called the gathering of waters seas. And God saw that this was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, seed-bearing plants of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that this was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night. They shall serve as signs for the set times, the days and the years. And they shall serve as lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth." And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to dominate the day, and the lesser light to dominate the night and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth, to dominate the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that this was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures and birds that fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." God created the great sea monsters and all the living creatures of every kind that creep which the waters brought forth in swarms, and all the winged birds of every kind. God saw that this was good. God blessed them, saying, Be fertile and increase, fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. God said, Let the earth bring forth every kind of living creature, cattle, creeping things, and wild beasts of every kind. And it was so. God made wild beasts of every kind, and cattle of every kind, and all kinds of creeping things of the earth. God saw that this was good. And God said, Let us make humankind in our image after our likeness. They shall rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the cattle, the whole earth, and all the creeping things that creep on it. And God created humankind in the divine image, creating it in the image of God, creating them male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fertile and increase, fill the earth and master it, and rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and all the living things that creep on it. God said, See, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, they shall be yours for food. And to all the animals on land, to all the birds of the sky, and to everything that creeps on earth, in which there is the breath of life, I give all the green plants for food. And it was so. And God saw all that had been made, and found it very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day.
That's it?
That's
Yes.
chapter 1.
Okay, very good. All right, excellent. All right, Ecclesiastes 1, go ahead.
Words of Kohelet, son of David, king of Jerusalem. Utter futility, said Kohelet, utter futility, all is futile. What real value is there for a man, all the gains he makes beneath the sun? One generation goes, another comes, but the earth remains the same forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and glides back to where it rises. Southward blowing, turning northward, ever turning blows the wind. On its round the wind turns. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full, to the place from which they flow. The streams flow back again. All such things are wearisome. No man can ever state them. The eye never has thought enough of seeing, nor the ear enough of hearing. Only that shall happen which has happened. Only that occur which has occurred. There is nothing new beneath the sun. Sometimes there is a phenomenon of which they say, Look, this one is new. It has occurred long since in an age that went before us. The early ones are not remembered, so too close are those which occur later will no more be remembered than those who will occur at the very end. Kohelet was king of Jerusalem over Israel. I set my mind to study and to probe with wisdom all that happens under the sun, in unhappiness business, that which God gave to men to be concerned with. I observe all the happenings beneath the sun, and I found all is futile in pursuit of the wind. A twisted thing that cannot be made straight, a lack that cannot be made good. I said to myself, Here I have grown richer and wiser than any that will before me over Jerusalem, and my mind has zealously absorbed wisdom and learning. And so I set my mind to appraise wisdom and to appraise madness and folly. And I learned this too was a pursuit of the wind. For wisdom grows, vexation grows, to increase learning, to increase heartache.
Okay, very good. All right, the floor is yours. Where are you seeing the moments that he's messing with the creation story? Let's see what you guys have found. Go ahead.
One thing that I noticed is that he brings up a few times like the sun, the sea, and the wind, which is like I guess like also themes in Genesis. And specifically one thing I noticed was that in Genesis when God talks about creating the sea and the sky, but then Solomon talks about how the sea is never full, no matter how much water is there. So he's like kind of like I guess like pushing back against God's idea that everything that he made is perfect, when in reality it's all just incomplete.
Incomplete. I like that. Okay, okay. Yes, good. So you're right, right? That's the first thing, which I'll come back to that. This notion of the elements of creation are all there in the chapter 1, but the way it's told, right, is problematic. We're gonna look at that. Good. Anybody else? Yes.
Progression of anything. And each day progresses to the next, and each day is completed in itself for each element that's created that day. And then in the Helen, it's very cyclical.
Yes.
Things just go round and round, and it seems to be for no purpose whatsoever.
Very good. Very good. And we have the notion of nothing new, whereas in the creation story, every day is new, right? In fact, in the prayers, right, that are recited in the context of Judaism, it's like every day is like a new creation, is celebrated like you're resurrected and given a completely new day that is created just for you, right? So there's the idea that every day is a new thing. In Ecclesiastes, every day, same old. Like most of us wake up in the state of Ecclesiastes, like, another day, just the same as the day before, right? But, and we're living, dwelling very much in the spirit of Ecclesiastes, right? But to see every day like a huge potential of anything could happen, right? Today could be the turning point of my life, right? And so forth. You don't know, right? That's the spirit of Genesis. Most of us, we are inhabited by the spirit of Kohelet, right? Every day is the same old day, doing the same old stuff, right? So very good. Yes, that's a good. So make sure you write this down. I'll come back to the elements, but definitely this, the notion of progression in Genesis, clear notion that every day is new. And the Kohelet is every day is the same old shit, right? Always the same thing. There's nothing new. It's all repetition of the day before. Okay, good. Anything else that you're noticing? Go ahead.
Yeah, that remembrance.
Oh,
They
I saw
just
that
have
too.
remembrance,
Mm,
because Hebrew text, like, remembrance is important.
doesn't what?
Remembrance has an importance.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and wiping out of remembrance,
Mhm.
curse, you know.
Very good.
I hear you saying,
Mm.
there's no remembrance there, you know, whatever, none of the things, have any recent meanings, have remembrance with those that will be in the way of time, so it has, like, remembrance has zero
Nice.
importance whatsoever. Well, a lot of texts say that remembrance is important,
Mhm.
and we are constantly, but remember you were, you know, slaves in Egypt, remember different things are very important. And this is saying, you know, nothing's important about.
Good, good.
remembrance.
And there's I'll come right to you. What especially are we supposed to remember that takes place in Genesis 1? What is one of those remembrances in the Jewish tradition that takes place in Genesis? Yes, right? Remember the Sabbath and in Genesis 1. And what is the Sabbath supposed to remind you of? Creation, right? So the idea is remember the creation. Remember who is at the origin of all this. Remember who's in control. That's the idea of the Sabbath, right? Remember who's in control, who gave you all this, right? Solomon is like, there's no remembrance. I don't remember who did what. I'm stuck here. I don't see no control, right? There is no creator. There is no order, right? When he's talking about not remembering, he is in a way striking at one of the basic tenets of Judaism, which is to remember creation, which is what? To remember there's a creator, to remember that there's someone in control on the throne, that you're not just living some chaotic life, right? So that's it. Thank you. That was really good. Yes. Epstein, yes.
I noticed that he rebuffed the meaning of man,
Yes.
of humanity. God gives people a job, which is to rule over the beasts and the wildlife and basically over the earth. And he goes, well, I looked at all and it doesn't matter.
Where is that? I looked at
13.
yes.
Mind to study to prove with wisdom that happens under the sun, an unhappy business that
Yes.
God gave to man to be considered.
Ah, very nice. Business, what's the Hebrew by any chance?
Natana Elohim livnei Adam le'onot no.
Let's see. Verse 13.
13.
Yep. What is the verb? The
Verse
word?
13.
Yeah. What is the word for business there? Naase? No. Business. An unhappy business. Yeah, I'm curious.
Inyan.
What be?
Inyan.
I'm looking. Ah, Inya, vra. Oh, got it. Inya. Interesting.
Before that, he also says, and speak.
Yes, very good. Okay, so instead of having, this glorious task of ruling and governing the world, you have what an unhappy business I have been given as king, right? Okay, so very nice, right? This is a big contrast. I like that. Anything else that you're noticing where he's messing with creation story?
We take note of the thing that he pointed out earlier.
Yeah, definitely. It's in chapter 3, but it works too. Same idea. Okay, here are a few more. And then if you think of something else, let me know. So, first of all, the elements of creation, right? They're all in this text. But instead of being deemed good, what are they deemed? Yes, Hevel, right? And let me show you how he does this, right? So first of all, the elements of creation, you see it, right? You have in Ecclesiastes 1, verse 4, the earth. Then in verse 5, the sun. Then you have the wind is not mentioned, but then you have the sea. These are all elements that are there. And then finally, you have the human being, right? Is that done mentioned? But anyways, it through the ear and the sight, right? So you have all the elements, but unlike the creation story where you have over and over again, God is saying, this is good, this is good, this is good. Here you have, this is Hevel, this is Hevel, this is Hevel. And by the way, there is a rhythm. Oh, I didn't put it here. That sucks. I had studied, and we have to verify that you have 7. Does it work? Does it work? I didn't verify and I forgot to put in my notes, but there's a notion of, we have to count. No, that's in chapter 2, the 7 havens. Sorry. Here we have the conclusion. Look at the conclusion in the creation story. Go to chapter 1, verse 31 in Genesis. So he has all these elements, and then God concludes, and God saw that he had made what he had made, right? And he found it very good. Okay, so you have tov, which is another key word in Ecclesiastes, we're going to see, right? And instead here in Ecclesiastes, what is the conclusion at the end of this pseudo-creation story? You can see, where is it? And I'll observe all the happenings beneath the sun, and I found that all is Hevel. By the way, yes, this is good. This is, look at chapter 1, verse 31 in Genesis. The word here, I saw that what God had made. You have two, I'm going to write this down. This is important. You have two words that we find right back in our passage. Two verbs. You have maaseh, what he had made. I need to make sure. No, all that God
So,
asa, yes. Asa, right? This is to make. Thank you. And then I saw, right? So this is ra'a, yireh, but from the verb ra'a. Okay, to see. Okay, so this is in Ecclesiastes. This is important, right? You find this in 2 passages. You find this in Ecclesiastes 131, where it says, I'm in freaking Genesis right now, sorry. Genesis 131, right? We have the final conclusion, right? After all the elements of creation, we have in God saw, ra'a, all that he had made, asa, asa, and then he found it was good. Result, so, okay? Now, when we read the conclusion in Ecclesiastes, I'm going here to Ecclesiastes 1:14. 1:14, we have exactly the same thing. I saw, right? So Haiti. Oh, it says happenings here, but what it is really all what was made. Same verb, except here in the Hebrew, it's the substantive of asa, ma'aseh. Same word, right? It's just the substantivization, the making a noun out of the verb, right? This is the noun version, ma'aseh, of asa. I saw all that has been made beneath the sun, and what do we have as a conclusion? Hevel. Okay. Did that make sense? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? He's repeating the same passage, but then instead of tov, he says Hevel, right? There's an intention. He's borrowing here again. Remember, the Hebrew writers are doing that. They borrow. He's intentionally borrowing from the creation story and God saw all that he had made. Ra'a, asa, and behold, it was good. And then now Ecclesiastes comes, takes the place of God, right? Pushes him off the throne. He's like, and I saw all that has happened, all that has been made. And I saw and I decided, Hevel. You see how he's booting God out of the throne room, right? Says, move over, right? and he places himself on the as a judge of the universe, right? And he's a twisting exactly what God has said. Is that clear? Am I clear? Suresh, Kaplan, Rivera? Makes sense? Okay, you got the Hebrew? Right, very good. Okay, so that's one of the most biggest contrasts, right? Basically, he's he's doing kind of like Job. He's striking the earth with his own judgment. Just like Job is judging God, Ecclesiastes in a way is judging the world. God says it was good, it's heaven, right? Okay, that's the first thing that we see. And then we have, of course, this notion, yes, yeah, that's a detail. Okay, this is the main thing, right? In addition to all the things that were said. Okay, and then there's the funny part, which leads into the next part, which is an allusion to the goddess Maat. Look at this. Anybody knows what Maat means in Egyptian? Anybody looked it up, huh?
Order.
Which one?
Order.
No, she's a goddess of order, but Ma'at itself, that word, straight, it means straight. Okay, look at this now. It's great. Where's that passage? You know what I'm talking about. Who can make straight? A twisted thing cannot be made straight. A lack cannot be made good, right? Little jab here at the goddess, right? You think you can, everything is twisted. There's no straightness in this world. Where are you, Ma'at, the goddess of the straight? Nothing is straight, right? The crooked cannot be made straight. You're powerless, oh goddess Ma'at, right? Okay, so that's the first thing we see, right? In addition to everything else that you said, you can see very clearly. Now let's see, why is he doing that? What is he saying by twisting up the creation story in this way? What's his point in the way that he's writing, right? So let me just summarize everything we said. Progress versus circular, right? The not remembering versus remembering. Man in the likeness of God, man as a beast. That's a good point. The ending, Tov versus Hevel, right? Is good. No, it's Hevel, right? What is he doing? What's his point? In the way that he's rewriting the cosmic narrative, right? Yeah.
Saying that like for so long, this narrative of creation has been put in stone, but the actual experience of man shows otherwise.
Exactly. Right? This is he's basically saying this story is a kind of a delusion, is a kind of a fairy tale. The reality is there is no order, right? There is no justice, there is no order, there is no cosmic order, chaos abounds. In fact, what he's saying is there is no creation. We are back in the pre-creation state. We are in a way in the tohu vabohu. Let me write this down. This is when the earth was, I love this word. And the earth was formless and void. This is in Genesis, right? Genesis 1. Basically, what Ecclesiastes is saying, we are there. We're back there. Let's go back to Genesis 1 so you can see it, right? Before the creation happened, right? Before God says anything, the earth was unformed and void. In the Hebrew, tohu vabohu, right? And then God creates, right? King Solomon is saying, this creation did not work, right? We did not really conquer chaos. Chaos abounds, right? Okay, so that's the first hit against the God of Israel. Now we have the hit against Maat. Let's take a look. Formless and void. Genesis 1. Yeah. Okay, so now we're seeing, right? He's basically saying creation never happened, right? Creation never happened. Everything is chaotic. There is no order. There is no creator. There is nobody. Now he's going to destroy Ma'at. And there's several moments. If you read throughout the book, you have this notion that there is no justice in the world, right? Now, by the way, who is the reason there's no justice in the world?
Man.
Which man?
Him.
Yes, right. He's the reason there's no. In fact, he puts himself. He's aware that he's the reason there's no justice in the land of Israel, right? Let's take a look at a little bit of them, right? So remember, Ma'at is the goddess of justice, and yet over and over again, he's going to say there is no justice, there is no judgment. In the end, we die, all of us the same fate. When he says the same fate, he's going against everything the Egyptians believe that, no, we don't have the same fate. If my heart is light, I go to heaven. If my heart is heavy, I go to hell, or the Egyptian variation of those, right? So let's look a little bit at some of those passages. 2:24, Ecclesiastes 2:24. I'll just go through and read. You can jot down, right? There's nothing worthwhile, blah, blah, blah. Why did I pick this passage? I don't know. I don't see I don't see what I wanted to say there. Okay, forget that. Let me continue. That's funny. Okay, 3:16. Okay, 3:16. I observed under the sun, alongside justice, there is wickedness, alongside righteousness, there is wickedness. And then God will doom both the righteous and the wicked. It's a rare moment of lucidity. But then he continues and says on 3:18, contradicting himself, right? Fate of man, fate of beast, both die. No difference, right? No afterlife, no spirit, no nothing. Continuing to 8, this is 2:18 to 20. Okay. Then we have 4:13 to 15. 4:13 to 15. We have oh no, I'm sorry, that's not where I want to be. Sorry, I'm at 4:1. 4:1. Okay, I further observed all the oppression that goes on under the sun, the tears of the oppressed, with none to comfort them, and the power of their oppressors, right? And then we have to see who is the oppressor here. That's interesting. He will say it. He continues, 8:14, just throughout the text. It's just, you can see this absolute lack of justice. 8:14. There's a frustration. Sometimes an upright is required according to the conduct of the scoundrel, etc. Let's see. 14, I'll share common destiny. Yes, 9:2. For the same fate is in store for all. This is directly against Maat. For the righteous and for the wicked, the good and the pure, the impure, him who sacrifices and him who does not, for etc. Right? So again, there is no weighing of the heart. It's all die the same death. And so forth. And then blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have definitely, now, why this injustice? Well, clearly when you have a king who is supposed to keep but that's his role, remember, the king is there to create the order. This is a sign. So not only he has lost the Ma'at, but because he has lost the Ma'at, he's losing his hold on the kingdom. And we have several moments where he acknowledges that he has lost his hold on the kingdom. He is losing his grasp, his grip on the kingdom. Look at all these moments where he is doubting that he's in control anymore. 2:18 to 20. So 2:18 to 20. I loathe the wealth I was gaining, for I shall leave it to a man who will succeed me, and who know whether he will be wise or foolish. Well, you should know, right? Why don't you educate your son so he's the wise? What are you doing? He has lost that future. Clearly, he has lost grasp over his son, and he has lost grasp, therefore, over the continuity of the kingdom. The kingdom is in jeopardy because whoever will succeed him is a fool, perhaps. His fault, right? So already we have this. Then we have 4:13 to 15. Again, you sense he's losing the grip. 4:13 to 15. We have better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king. And if you know the backdrop, the political backdrop of that statement, it makes sense. I continue then, I'll tell you. For the former can emerge from a dungeon to become king, while the latter, even if born to kingship, can become a pauper. Is the real story was that he had a son who got elected. I mean, when he died, his son was the obvious successor, and he had a servant who was also looking for the crown, but fled because he was, of course, endangered. So the son becomes king, and then we have a little glimpse into how Solomon's reign was, right? Look at 1 Kings 12:4. I'm not finding it in this Bible. Somebody find it.
What was
One-
the verse that you just quoted from
Yes, it's 4:13. 4:13, mentioning the old king and the wise youth. And we'll see who is this wise youth. We have to know the political backdrop of that.
1 Kings 12:4.
Yes, 1 Kings 12:4. Can you read it?
Your father made our yoke heavy.
Yes.
Now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke that your father laid on us.
Exactly. This is talking to the son of Solomon, who I keep on mixing them up. It's Rehoboam, right? How you say it in the Hebrew, you guys? How you taught?
Rehoboam.
Rehoboam. Okay. So Rehoboam or Rehoboam, right? So they're talking to the son, and they said, your father oppressed us. Now decide how you will treat us. And he ends up, and so you can see already how King Solomon, he's the one causing this, right? Because he has lost his Maat and he's losing the grip on the kingdom. Oppression, injustice abound, right? And we see a glimpse of that through this statement to his son. And then, of course, Rehoboam decides, I'm going to be worse than my father. And the result is the split of the kingdom, right? And so Judah, the only tribe that remains is the tribe of David, which is the tribe of Judah. And the rest are like, the hell with you. We don't need you. And then they elect this poor, wise youth, Jeroboam. In the Hebrew, how y'all say it? Jeroboam? Jeroboam. Yerevan. Okay, so now you know. Okay, they elect him, and that's when the kingdom is split. Complete chaos, right?
So this happens after the death of Solomon.
Yes.
So then
Yep.
how is Solomon writing about?
Oh, it looks like he has already a glimmer of what's about to happen. Remember, he's very old when he's writing this. He's already seeing when you're a father, you see what's going on, right? Just like I know when you cheat, like Solomon knows, he has this third eye that he can already sense, look at this guy plotting against me, and look at my son, what he's going to be, right? So, but the text was there simply to show that he was oppressive, right? He was an oppressive king, in the style of the pharaohs.
But
Okay.
also,
Yes.
he omits saying that father rescue you, or that you should do something about rescuing the oppressed, which practice state.
Right, he's not saying anything like that. Absolutely.
Oppressed.
Exactly. No, this is where we are. Conclusion, he has lost his Maat. This is the kingdom in chaos with a complete rampant injustice, which emerges from a king who has lost touch with his God, right? Lost touch with the goddess, whatever you want to, however you want to see it, right? He's lost touch with Maat in the Egyptian style, or he's lost touch with the God of Israel, to which he was supposed to cleave in order to be a king with legitimate authority. And that's where we are throughout the book. Now, what we're going to see is moments where he emerges from this, right? We're entering the darkness now with him, but there will be moments where he has these powerful epiphanies, kind of like, when you're, any of you have this, you get super depressed and you have the most amazing epiphanies after that. A little bit of anybody get a little bit get super depressed here. Nobody? Okay. That when you go really dark, there are moments that you will have, right? So at times, amazing epiphanies. This is where we are, right? So next time, chapter 2, I want you to focus on chapter 2. We're going to look at this first of the epiphanies of Solomon that comes out of this darkness, which you cannot understand or see unless you've traveled so far with Solomon. Okay, let me stop here.